Hi, I'm Mike Winkler, and I'm the Principal Managing Broker for Coldwell Banker Bain in Issaquah, Washington.
And I'm EJ Bolds. I'm the Principal Managing Broker for Coldwell Banker Bain on Mercer Island, Washington.
EJ, I always try and come up with some clever segue from our previous video post with Realty Bros. And this time we're going to talk about the closing process, and I thought that given the amount of marriages that you've accumulated over time that you're probably an expert and should begin.
Yeah, I guess I have closed the deal a few times too. Another subject though.
Yep.
But perhaps one of the most misunderstood parts of the whole selling process is the actual closing piece, and it's arguably the most important part because that's where everybody wants to end up. So today we're going to talk about 4 different things, different pieces of that, and that's signing, closing, recording, and possession. And while it might intuitively seem to a buyer or a seller that all 4 of those things happen at once, they're actually 4 separate events. In different parts of the country, closings occur differently. Process is a little different, especially in the eastern part of the U.S. But in the state of Washington, the signing, the closing, the recording, and possession are really 4 separate events.
The signing, of course, is the literal signing of the closing papers that are prepared by an escrow company. The escrow company is the neutral third party that finishes or closes the transaction based on the terms that were mutually agreed upon by the buyer and seller in writing in what we call the purchase and sale agreement. The buyer brings the funds needed to close either from the proceeds of a loan or cash from their own reserves. So the buyer, in addition to other forms, generally signs loan documents along with a closing statement that describes how the money is collected and dispersed. The seller, in addition to other forms, will sign the deed of trust, which will convey the title to the buyer, plus their own closing statement. And its signing is when the buyer delivers their down payment, often thinking understandably that when they drop off that big check, that, hey, this is my house now.
Not so, excise tax bread. Also, the seller signs the deed, the buyer signs the deed of trust for the loan. So,
well, I said that, didn't I? I kind of said that.
You said, yes.
Okay, good, yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I said.
Anyway, so in Washington State, the closing happens anywhere from a day to a week after the signing. So it's important for brokers to let their buyers know that the signing and the closing are 2 different events. And so once you've dropped off that down payment, doesn't mean that you've actually bought the property. After the signing, the escrow agent reconciles all of the financial issues regarding the property. Most transactions involve a lender, and so part of that reconciliation is finishing up the loan documents, getting the lender to fund the loan, and at that point, once the loan is funded, then the escrow company is ready to pay off the encumbrances and to send the proceeds to the seller. Now remember, at this point, no money has actually changed hands. The buyer's delivered funds to escrow, but the seller hasn't gotten any of the money yet.
Recording is a delivery of loan and closing documents and the deed, which will transfer the title to the new buyer to the clerk and recorder's office in the county seat where the sold property is located. A courier delivers the documents to the county offices on the closing date that's named in the contract or the purchase and sale. The clerk or their representatives will actually record the documents in the public records and will authenticate the recording by providing recording numbers, which are actually stamped on the documents as they're recorded. The recording numbers are immensely important as they provide the proof that the paperwork is finished. Remember, escrow has the funds from the buyer, and now that the documents are recorded, they can make the proceeds available to the seller. But as the buyer, we're not done yet.
We're not quite done yet, because the last piece of that is possession. And remember that per the contract, possession occurs at 9 p.m. on the possession date. So possession could be on closing, And remember, if closing is supposed to be on Friday, we could have signing on Wednesday, and then on Friday, the documents could be released at noon and be recorded at 3, and so everything is done, and yet the buyer has to wait 6 more hours until 9 p.m. to actually get possession. So it's incumbent upon everybody to understand that closing and possession are different events.
Mhm. In fact, as much fun as we're having in this particular video post, which we are, it really is important that all the parties understand that the transaction, know that signing, closing, recording, and possession are 4 separate events. And it's essential that all parties understand that prior to the closing, in order to avoid what EJ's ex-wives have experienced, and that is unmet expectations.
I'm EJ Bolt.
I'm Mike Winkler. Until next time.